Have you ever felt surrounded by people and still felt alone? Have you ever wondered why your mind keeps drifting back to the same heaviness, even when life looks fine? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are taking a theme that sounds almost too bold to believe. The idea that a short window of time can change the direction of years. Not because time itself is magic, but because what happens inside a few honest minutes can reveal the pattern that has been shaping your life quietly in the background. When you see the pattern clearly, you begin to loosen it. And when you loosen it, you begin to change your destiny. Not as a fixed fate, but as the momentum of what you repeat. Here are the two main ideas I want to carry through this long story. First, loneliness and depression are often not personal failures. They can be intelligent responses to pain, disconnection, and unmet needs. When we meet them with compassion and wisdom instead of shame and force, something starts to soften. Second, compassion is not only a feeling, it is a practice that includes clear seeing, ethical choices, and the courage to stay present with discomfort. In Buddhist language, wisdom and compassion are meant to travel together. When they do, karma becomes practical. You stop planting seeds of self-harm through self-hatred. You start planting seeds of healing through kindness and clarity. Let me tell it as a story. Because stories help the nervous system learn what ideas alone cannot teach. There was a person named Daniel who lived in a place where everyone looked busy, productive, and slightly tired. Daniel was not falling apart on the outside. Daniel showed up. Daniel did what was expected. Daniel answered messages. Daniel kept promises. Daniel could even make jokes at the right time. But at night, when the room went quiet, something heavy would arrive. It felt like a hollow space behind the ribs. It felt like an ache that did not have a single cause. Daniel told himself, "I should be grateful." Daniel told himself, "Other people have it worse." Daniel told himself, "Stop being dramatic." Those sentences sounded like discipline, but they acted like a cage. The more Daniel tried to crush the feeling, the louder it became. Eventually, Daniel started coping in ways that looked normal but felt addictive. Scrolling until the eyes hurt, snacking without hunger, watching videos with the volume low so the silence would not speak, saying yes to plans and then wishing to disappear once there. Building a life that looked connected while feeling disconnected inside. One weekend, Daniel went to a gathering where a guest speaker was visiting. The speaker was an older man with a calm voice. The kind of calm that does not come from a perfect life, but from a life that has been examined honestly. The speaker talked about pain in a way that did not sound like therapy slogans. He talked about pain like a messenger. He said something like this: "If you listen long enough, symptoms often reveal the story you were not allowed to tell." Daniel felt uncomfortable. Daniel also felt relieved, because Daniel had always suspected there was a story under the heaviness. But Daniel did not know how to approach it without drowning. After the talk, Daniel waited in line and asked a simple question that carried years of fatigue. "Why do I feel lonely even when people are around?" The speaker did not answer with a quick fix. He asked a different question. "When did you first learn that your real feelings were not welcome?" Daniel felt a sting. Not because the question was aggressive, but because it was accurate. Daniel did not have a neat memory ready, but the body responded. The shoulders tightened. The throat became dry. The mind tried to change the subject. The speaker noticed and said softly, "We can stay with that reaction for a moment. That reaction is honest." Daniel agreed to a short private conversation. Just a few minutes. Daniel expected advice. Instead, the speaker offered something closer to a mirror. He asked Daniel to take one breath and notice what happens inside when the question is asked again. "When did you first learn that your real feelings were not welcome?" Daniel inhaled. On the exhale, an image appeared. Not cinematic, more like a flash of emotional weather. Daniel as a child, standing in a kitchen, holding a report card. A parent looked at the page and said, "You can do better." Not cruel, but distant. Daniel remembered trying to smile, trying to earn warmth by being impressive. Daniel remembered that sadness and fear would read it as weakness. Daniel remembered being told, "Stop crying. You are fine." Daniel remembered learning to swallow feelings so the room would stay calm. The speaker nodded as if Daniel had described a universal language. He said, "Many people who feel only learn it early to disconnect from themselves in order to stay connected to others. They traded inner truth for outer belonging. That trade may have been necessary then, but it becomes painful later, because the cost of belonging becomes self-abandonment, and self-abandonment feels like loneliness even in a crowd." Daniel felt tears rise and immediately felt shame about the tears. The speaker said, "Notice the shame. Shame is often the guard at the door that protects old pain. If you fight shame, it tightens. If you meet shame with compassion, the door opens." Daniel did not know how to meet shame with compassion. Daniel had only known how to manage shame with performance. The speaker offered a short practice. He said, "Put a hand on your chest if you are willing, and say inwardly, 'I see you,' not as a magical phrase, but as a simple recognition. Then breathe." Daniel placed a hand on the chest. The warmth of the palm felt unfamiliar, like kindness was something given outward but rarely inward. Daniel whispered inside, "I see you." The body reacted. I sob tried to rise. Daniel panicked. The speaker said, "Slow down. You do not have to flood. You only have to stop running." That was the first real lesson. The difference between drowning and staying present. Many people fear compassion because they confuse compassion with being swallowed by pain. But compassion can be steady. Compassion can be like a lamp. A lamp does not absorb darkness. A lamp offers light. In Buddhist terms, compassion without wisdom becomes overwhelmed. Wisdom without compassion becomes cold. The practice is to hold both. Wisdom says, "I can feel this without becoming it." Compassion says, "I will not abandon myself while I feel it." The speaker asked Daniel another question. "When you feel lonely, what do you do to get away from it?" Daniel listed the habits: the scrolling, the overeating, the overworking, the pleasing, the joking, the constant thinking. The speaker did not scold. Those are strategies. They are not moral failures. They are attempts to regulate pain. But notice the hidden karma. Each time you escape, you teach the nervous system that your own feelings are unsafe. Each time you escape, you deepen the habit of disconnection. Over time, that habit becomes destiny. You live in a world where you cannot fully meet yourself. And if you cannot meet yourself, you cannot fully meet anyone else. Daniel felt the truth of it. It was painful, but it was also strangely hopeful. Because if loneliness is partly disconnection from self, then reconnection is possible. That means the story is not finished. The speaker said, "Let us stay with this for 15 minutes. Not to fix you, just to help you taste a different relationship with your inner life." He guided Daniel through something that sounded simple and felt intense. First, he asked Daniel to name the feeling without explaining it. Loneliness. He asked Daniel to locate it in the body. Daniel felt it as pressure in the chest and a sinking sensation in the stomach. He asked Daniel to breathe toward that place as if the breath could make space. Then he asked Daniel to add one element. Not forced kindness, not fake positivity, but basic friendliness. He said, "Can you let your inner tone be gentle while you notice the pain?" Daniel tried. The pain did not vanish, but something changed. The pain felt less like an enemy and more like a signal. Daniel realized that the most unbearable part of loneliness was not the loneliness itself. It was the judgment about it. The inner voice saying, "You should not be like this. You are broken. You are weak." That voice was like a second arrow. The first arrow is pain. The second arrow is the added suffering of self-attack. The speaker said, "In many traditions, the path begins when you stop shooting the second arrow. That is wisdom. Then you learn to soothe the first arrow with compassion. That is mercy. Mercy is not sentimental. Mercy is the willingness to offer care to what hurts. Daniel sat there, hand on chest, breathing. 15 minutes passed. Daniel did not become healed forever. But Daniel tasted something new. The possibility of being with pain without hatred. That taste was small but revolutionary, because it suggested a different destiny. After the conversation, Daniel walked outside and the air felt sharper. Cars moved. People talked. Life continued. But Daniel felt a new question arising. Not why am I like this, but how do I practice so I do not abandon myself again? That question became the doorway. Daniel began exploring practices that sounded Buddhist in flavor, but were deeply human in function. Mindfulness, the ability to notice experience without immediately reacting. Loving kindness, the ability to offer goodwill toward oneself and others. Ethical living, the choice to stop creating future regret through speech and action. Wise compassion, the ability to care without collapsing. Daniel started small. Each morning, before the phone, Daniel sat for a few minutes and breathed. Daniel placed a hand on the chest and repeated a simple direction. May I be safe. May I be calm. May I be kind. Daniel did not always feel it. Sometimes the words felt dry. But Daniel remembered. Phrases are not always about feeling. They are about training. Repetition shapes the mind. It is like water shaping stone. Then Daniel expanded the practice. Daniel began to notice moments of loneliness during the day, not only at night. Loneliness appeared in subtle places. When a message took too long to get a reply. When Daniel saw friends laughing without him. When Daniel finished a task and felt empty instead of satisfied. When Daniel was praised and felt nothing. Daniel began to treat those moments as invitations rather than failures. When loneliness appeared, Daniel practiced 3 steps. First, recognize it. This is loneliness. Second, locate it. Where is it in the body? Third, soften the inner tone. Can I be kind while I feel this? Sometimes Daniel added a visualization, imagining a warm light in the chest. Sometimes Daniel imagined an older compassionate presence sitting beside him, calm and steady, like a mentor that never shames. The image did not need to be believed as literal. It needed to function as a training of the nervous system. The nervous system learns by repetition and association. When you repeatedly pair pain with kindness instead of shame, you create a new pathway. That pathway becomes karma in the most direct sense. Cause and effect inside your own body. Daniel also began to notice how loneliness affected relationships. Daniel realized that when he felt lonely, he often reached for reassurance in indirect ways, fishing for compliments, over-explaining, apologizing too much, saying yes when he meant no. Those behaviors were not manipulative in an intentional way. They were attempts to secure belonging, but they created the opposite effect. They made Daniel feel less authentic, and people can sense inauthenticity even when they cannot name it. So Daniel practiced something else. Truth with kindness. In Buddhist term, right speech. Right speech is not just polite speech. It is speech that reduces suffering. It includes honesty. It includes timing. It includes intention. When Daniel felt lonely, instead of performing, Daniel practiced naming a need directly to someone safe. Not dramatically, not as a demand, but as honesty. I have been feeling disconnected lately. Could we talk for a bit? The first time Daniel said it, the voice shook. Daniel feared rejection, but the friend responded with warmth. They talked. The loneliness softened. Daniel realized that one reason loneliness lasts is because shame makes you hide. When you hide, you cannot receive connection. When you cannot receive connection, you feel more lonely. The cycle repeats. Breaking the cycle requires courage. Courage is a form of compassion. Still, Daniel had days when everything collapsed. A hard day at work, a disagreement, a cold message, a sleepless night. On those days the old voice returned. You are back to zero. You have not improved. You will always be like this. Daniel brought this to his meditation teacher, a quiet woman named Sarah who had practiced for years. Sarah listened and said, "Notice that voice is trying to freeze your identity. Always, never, forever. This is a common illusion. The mind tries to create certainty, even if the certainty is painful. But your experience is not fixed. Everything arises and passes. This is impermanence. When you remember impermanence, you gain hope without forcing positivity. You simply see that the storm is not the sky." Sarah taught Daniel to practice with a wider view. When depression appeared, Daniel could label it. Depression is here. When loneliness appeared, loneliness is here. The point was not to become numb. The point was to stop merging identity with mood. Mood is weather. The mind is the sky. This is wisdom. Then Sarah taught Daniel compassion for the part that wants certainty. She said, "The part that says always and never is often a frightened child. It is trying to protect you from disappointment by predicting doom. If you fight it, it fights back. If you meet it with kindness, it relaxes." Daniel practiced this. When the doom voice appeared, Daniel would place a hand on the chest and say inwardly, "Thank you for trying to protect me. I am here. We can breathe." This may sound strange, but it worked, because it turned inner conflict into inner care. It turned self-war into self-companionship. Over time, Daniel began to see the deeper roots. Loneliness was not only about other people. It was about the relationship to self. Daniel had learned it early that being lovable meant being useful, impressive, or easy. Daniel had learned to hide messy feelings. Daniel had learned to perform a version of himself that earned approval. That version could receive praise, but it could not receive true connection, because true connection requires being seen. So the practice became learning to be seen, first by the self, then by others. This is awakening in a very practical form. Daniel began journaling after meditation, not to analyze endlessly, but to name truth gently. What did I feel today? What did I need? Where did I abandon myself? Where did I return? Daniel noticed patterns. When Daniel skipped meals, mood dropped. When Daniel slept poorly, anxiety rose. When Daniel scrolled late at night, mind became agitated. When Daniel practiced kindness in the morning, the day felt less sharp. Again, karma, cause and effect, not moral judgment. Simple reality. Daniel also began to practice generosity in small ways, not to earn love, but to express love, offering a kind message, helping a neighbor, listening without interrupting. Compassionate listening became a major practice. Daniel realized that when you truly listen, you step out of your own story for a moment. That can relieve loneliness, because loneliness often includes being trapped inside repetitive thought. Listening becomes a way of opening the heart outward without abandoning it. One day Daniel was on a bus and saw an older man struggling with a heavy bag. Daniel hesitated. The old habit was to look away, to avoid involvement, to protect energy. But Daniel remembered the lamp. Compassion does not require you to solve everything. It requires you to respond humanly when you can. Daniel stood and offered help. The man smiled and said thank you. They spoke for a moment. Nothing dramatic. But Daniel felt something in the chest. A quiet warmth. Daniel realized that loneliness is sometimes eased not by getting, but by giving. Not from self-sacrifice, but from self-expansion. When you act with kindness, you remember you belong to life. This connects to a Buddhist insight that is often misunderstood. The self is not a sealed container. The self is relational. When you live only inside your own worries, the container feels small and suffocating. When you act with compassion, the container becomes less rigid. Life feels wider. That is a kind of freedom. Still, Daniel had to learn boundaries. At first, Daniel tried to be kind to everyone and became exhausted. Sarah reminded him, compassion without wisdom becomes burnout. Wisdom includes knowing your limits. Wisdom includes saying no without hatred. Wisdom includes resting. Rest can be compassionate. If you ignore your limits, you create future resentment. That resentment becomes karmic momentum. So rest is not laziness. It is part of ethical living. Daniel learned to say, "I cannot do that today. I care, but I need rest." At first, Daniel feared people would leave. Some people did. Daniel realized those relationships were built on performance. Others stayed. Those relationships deepened. Loneliness began to change texture. It did not disappear forever, but it no longer felt like a permanent identity. Then, a bigger test arrived. Daniel attended a family gathering where old dynamics were waiting like traps. A relative made a cutting comment. Daniel felt the familiar heat and shrinking. The old pattern was either to fight or to freeze. Daniel practiced the pause. One breath. Hand on chest under the table. "May I be calm? May I be kind?" Daniel responded with clear calm. "That comment does not feel respectful to me. I am not continuing this conversation in that tone." The room went quiet. Daniel felt fear. Then Daniel felt dignity. Dignity is a fruit of compassion with wisdom. Daniel did not attack. Daniel did not submit. Daniel stayed human. Later that night, Daniel sat alone and felt loneliness return. But it felt different. It felt like tiredness more than despair. Daniel realized that healing is not linear. Healing is like training. You gain strength. Then you face heavier weight. Then you gain strength again. Each return is practice. Now I want to bring in the bold claim we started with. The idea of 15 minutes. The point is not that 15 minutes magically erase years. The point is that 15 minutes can reveal the lever. If you find the lever, daily practice becomes meaningful. Without the lever, you can spend years spinning in the same loop. For Daniel, the lever was realizing that loneliness was not proof of unworthiness. It was a signal of self-abandonment learned early. When Daniel stopped abandoning himself, the loneliness softened. When Daniel met shame with compassion, the door opened. When Daniel practiced presence, the nervous system learned safety. When the nervous system learned safety, connection became possible. In Buddhist terms, this is also the movement from ignorance to awareness. Ignorance does not mean stupidity. Ignorance means not seeing clearly how suffering is being created in the mind. When you see clearly, you have choice. Choice is the beginning of liberation. Let us do a short guided practice inside this story. Because if you can taste it even briefly, you will understand it in your body. Sit or stand in a way that feels stable. Let the shoulders drop. Feel the breath. Now bring to mind the feeling of loneliness. Not the biggest one, just a mild version. The sense of distance. The sense of being unseen. Notice where it lies in the body. Now, instead of judging it, offer a gentle inner tone. Place a hand on the chest if you want. Say inwardly, "I see you." Breathe. Do not force anything. Let the feeling be allowed. Now add a simple phrase, a direction. May I be safe. May I be calm. May I be kind. If the mind argues, notice it. Return to breath. Return to hand. Return to the phrase. Now imagine that the part of you that feels lonely is not your enemy. Imagine it is a younger part trying to protect you. Offer it compassion. May you be safe. May you be calm. May you be kind. Stay for a few breaths. That is practice. That is awakening in motion. Now return to the story. Over the next year, Daniel continued. The changes were not always visible to others, but they were visible to Daniel. The inner life became less hostile. Daniel began to feel moments of quiet joy. Not loud excitement, but a gentle okayness. Daniel began to trust that feelings could move through without destroying him. That trust is enormous. Many people live as if feelings are emergencies. When you stopped reading feelings as emergencies, you gained space. Daniel also noticed a shift in purpose. Before, Daniel wanted to be happy as a way to escape pain. Now Daniel wanted to live with meaning. Meaning included service. kindness, learning, and honest connection. Meaning included accepting that life contains sadness and still choosing compassion. That is mature compassion. It is not naive. It is brave. At some point, Daniel asked Sarah, "What is the goal of all this? Is the goal to never feel lonely again?" Sarah smiled and said, "The goal is not to eliminate human feeling. The goal is to stop being imprisoned by it. The goal is to relate to pain with wisdom and compassion. When you do that, pain becomes workable. You become free enough to love. This is the heart of the Buddhist path in simple language. You do not become a perfect person. You become a person who returns to breath, returns to kindness, returns to ethical choices, returns to clear seeing, returns to compassion." Now I want to share the ending in a way that might feel like your own life. Daniel was invited to a friend's gathering. In the past, Daniel would have gone and performed, then come home empty. This time Daniel practiced presence. Daniel listened more. Daniel spoke honestly. Daniel noticed when the body tightened and softened it. Daniel did not try to be impressive. Daniel tried to be real. At one point a friend asked, "How have you been lately?" "Really?" Daniel paused. In that pause, Daniel felt the old fear of being too much. Then Daniel remembered the practice. Do not abandon the heart. Daniel said, "I have been learning to meet my loneliness instead of running from it. It is not gone, but it is softer. I feel more here." The friend nodded and said, "I know that feeling. I thought it was just me." They talked. The room did not explode with enlightenment, but something quiet happened. Connection, not performance. Connection. Daniel went home later and realized that the opposite of loneliness is not constant socializing. The opposite of loneliness is presence with self and authenticity with others. When you are present with yourself, you can be alone without feeling abandoned. When you are authentic with others, you can be with people without feeling unseen. That is a kind of liberation. And liberation changes destiny. Because a lonely person often makes choices from fear. Fear makes you cling. Fear makes you avoid. Fear makes you settle for shallow connection or avoid connection entirely. When loneliness softens, choices become wiser. You choose better friends. You set better boundaries. You speak more truth. You create less regret. Your karma changes. Your life changes. As we come to the end, I want to offer a final reflection that might land in your own experience. If you have felt lonely, depressed, or lost, please remember this. These states are not proof that you are broken. They may be proof that something in you is asking to be met with compassion. They may be proof that you learned to survive by disconnecting. Survival is not shameful. It was intelligent. But now you can learn a new intelligence. The intelligence of tenderness with boundaries. The intelligence of truth with kindness. The intelligence of being present without collapsing. I have seen people begin this shift with very small steps. A few minutes of breathing and hand on chest. A simple phrase repeated daily. A moment of naming a need to a safe person. A decision to stop feeding late-night doom scrolling. A commitment to one small act of kindness. These small steps are not small when repeated. Repetition is power. Repetition is karma. Repetition becomes destiny. Thank you for staying with me through this long story. If anything in it resonated, share your own experience in the comments. Tell me what loneliness feels like for you, what you do when it shows up, and what kind of compassion practice has helped even a little. And if you want more long-form stories and practices like this, please subscribe, like the video, and support the channel in whatever way is possible for you. Until next time, keep breathing, keep practicing, and keep choosing the kindest next step.